How y'all doing, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my NFL Playoffs 2024 AFC and NFC Championship Game picks. Before we get into the conference championship games, let me give you some quick thoughts on what happened on in the divisional round. Oh, I don't even know where to begin with here. Just to have a quick discussion about what have happened. I mean, I don't know what is more of a bigger disappointment if you're a Ravens fan or a Lions fan. I have to go with the fact that the Ravens probably had the bigger heartbreak than the Lions did. Because the Ravens, despite fighting so hard in the fourth quarter to tie the game, Andrews, their tight end, drops a two-point conversion, basically a Jackie Smith type of play. I hate to bring up Jackie Smith because obviously everybody knows that history of that Cowboys-Steelers Super Bowl on Super Bowl 13. You got to feel for the guy. He drops a two-point conversion. He had a rough night because he did have a turnover too. And obviously, when you look at that game, the question really was the more mind-boggling point was, how did they not utilize Derrick Henry in the fourth quarter more than they did earlier in that game? Because really, the Bills couldn't stop him all night. And yet, somehow, they forget to utilize him in the fourth quarter, and somehow the Bills still ended up winning. And if you're a Bills fan, you were lucky to escape that victory. And then now there's a question. Now you have a lot of questions going into the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, but we'll get into that. And when I go the other way, when I talk about the Lions, you're the number one overall seed, home field advantage, and you get embarrassed at home by an up-and-coming Jaden Daniels-led Washington Commanders team. Not even 1 week off for this Lions team was enough to heal a completely broken down defense. As much as the defense gets the blame for that, I mean, you got to also look at Jared Goff too. The turnovers in that game as well. You look at the Ravens and their turnovers, that's what exactly happened to the Lions and their turnovers. The turnovers killed the Lions. They could never recover from it, and their defense was depleted. They were basically on their last limbs and basically on their last legs. And they just couldn't stop Jaden Daniels. They had trouble stopping mobile quarterbacks all season long. And it's just so heartbreaking if you're a Lions fan, the amount of torture you guys receive so much. I mean, last season you get to the conference championship game, you just couldn't beat the 49ers. And then in this one, the loss was even worse. This loss was much worse. The Lions, this 24 Lions team joins the 2011 Green Bay Packers when they were also the number one seed in the NFC, and they didn't even get to the conference championship game. So you compare those two teams. Obviously, the Lions now have surpassed that big disappointment that the Packers had in 2011 when they were dominant, and they lost in the divisional round. Rams game, Eagles fought very hard. Obviously, it wasn't that easy. Matthew Stafford and the Rams have had the experience and all of that, but somehow the Eagles survived that game, and they ended up winning. And who knows what the future holds for the Rams, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and a lot of players, because there's a lot of questions going on for the Rams in the offseason, where they're going to stand going into the 25 season. Who knows? And obviously, they don't have that much draft picks this year as well. But if you look at the Eagles and Saquon Barkley, obviously, he's still the guy that could look like that could get them to the Super Bowl. And Hurts was pretty banged up against the Rams, and now his health now is going to be big-time question going into the NFC Championship game. All right, everybody, and speaking of the conference championship games, let's get into the discussion. Now, the NFC Championship game will start first, and then the AFC Championship game will follow. And that is the order I'm going to talk about in this video here. I'm going to actually begin with the NFC Championship game first. The NFC Championship, the Washington Commanders versus the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are a 6-point favorite in this one here, and that number is going to guarantee to go down to 5.5, maybe 5. Jaden Daniels was 22 of 31, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns and no interception, and a dominant win over the Lions last Saturday. The Eagles' Jalen Hurts was 15 of 20, 128 yards, 0 touchdowns, but luckily no interceptions. He didn't have his best game against the Rams. I look at this football game. This is the third meeting between these two teams. And the Commanders played the Eagles fairly well, but that was in Washington, so that was a little bit different. I mean, in terms of home field advantage. Can Jaden Daniels and their offense especially now the Eagles defense is starting to feel a bit tired now. And you got to wonder, are they going to be ready for Jaden Daniels in terms of him getting out of the pocket and being mobile? This is where the question marks begin with this team. And the question marks still remain. Did the Eagles finally get their offense on the same page? Because obviously the wild card game with the Packers and A.J. Brown reading a book on the sideline, and you got to wonder, had they finally started to get their offense intact? It's very hard to say what will happen in this NFC Championship game. This is guaranteed to be a very, very, very close game. There's no way this game's a blowout. And it's going to be hard to say who's going to... I think more than likely, whoever has the ball last is probably going to win the game. It's a tough pick. This is a coin flip here, a 50-50 toss-up. I don't know who wins this game, to be honest with you. Because the way the Commanders have played, they have surpassed expectations. And Jaden Daniels is as guaranteed now to win the Rookie of the Year for sure in the NFL. But it's just something about Saquon Barkley and the way he has ran the football all season long. And he is going to be the key for this Eagles team to reach the Super Bowl. Their defense has to find a way to make sure that Jaden Daniels doesn't get mobile and find a way to stop any sort of run game. And the way I'm looking at this football game, it is going to be a very tight football game all 4 quarters. But who am I going to pick for the NFC Championship? I'm going to pick the Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon Barkley is the key. If he gets that running game going, I don't see any way the Commanders' defense is going to stop him. Saquon wants a crack at the Super Bowl, and I figured if you're Jalen Hurts and all that, and you want to avoid any pressure or anything or trying to win the game yourself, you hand it off to Barkley. He's the man that's going to get the Eagles to the Super Bowl. Saquon they haven't been able to, so far, no NFL team has been able to stop them all season in terms of stopping Saquon Barkley, and he's vital for the Eagles to get to the Super Bowl. I'm going to pick the Philadelphia Eagles to win the NFC Championship. I believe they'll get to the Super Bowl. I'm going to pick the Eagles at -6 to beat the Commanders. And now the AFC Championship. The Buffalo Bills versus the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are a 1.5-point favorite, and I would say that that's about right. Josh Allen was 16 of 22 last week against the Ravens. 127 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Not exactly his best stats all season, but it was enough to beat the Ravens. Patrick Mahomes last week, 16 of 25, 177 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. Big time question marks going into this football game for both these two teams because this is probably an even bigger coin flip. This is really a 50-50 toss-up. It's a coin flip. I don't know who's going to win this game. Buffalo's offense was slowed down quite a bit against the Ravens. Ravens defense, they were able to hold Josh Allen not to run out of the pocket pretty well. And if you're Kansas City, you're going to look at that film and you got to wonder, they got to do the same thing because their defense so far this season has been a factor in getting the Chiefs those so-called wins that they should have lost. And you look at Patrick Mahomes and all that. Look, I'm not going to speculate on officiating or anything and all that. Obviously, last week there was a controversial a roughing the passer call against the Texans that shouldn't have been called, and it looked like Patrick Mahomes didn't get roughed up pretty well. And look, I can't get into any sort of controversy when it comes to the officiating. I don't like it as much as you guys do, and I agree that should not have been called. I really think that the Texans kind of got wax jobbed on that. They kind of got screwed on that play. But in all honesty, look, the Texans had plenty of opportunities to stay within the game and to tie that, but Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, you know what they're capable of with Travis Kelce. Pacheco can get the running game going at any time, and then their defense has just done a fantastic job of being able to stop any sort of offense. Now the Bills, of course, beat them in the regular season, but when it comes to the postseason, they just, up until now, until this game, they haven't beaten them. It just seems like Kansas City shines the most in the postseason when it comes to any opponent they run into. Bills key right now, the Bills have to control the ball. They got to control the clock. And the most important stat that they have to have more than anything is to not turn the ball over. That's how they beat the Ravens last week. And turnovers killed the Buffalo Bills last season in the divisional. That really cost them the game. And that's going to be vital in this football game. Who controls the ball? Who controls the clock? And most importantly, who does not turn the ball over? It is really going to be a tough football game. This is really, you're not going to go wrong with either game, in all honesty. But if I gotta pick the AFC Championship winner in this one here. This pains me to say this, because my heart wants the Bills to win this game. I want them to get to the Super Bowl, but I gotta be realistic here. Until they beat the Chiefs, I just don't know if they're gonna get there, if the Chiefs are always gonna be in the way. And unfortunately, for another year, the Chiefs are gonna beat the Bills again. They just have their offense, somehow they get lucky. Patrick Mahomes just makes better plays than Josh Allen does. And their defense and Spagnuolo's defense they just know how to mix things up and really get to the quarterback. And that Bills offensive line has to play flawless in this game to just make sure that Josh Allen doesn't get sacked in this game. It's going to be a very close game for 4 quarters. It could be another all-time classic other than that 13-second game we saw a few years ago. But it just seems like the Chiefs, they just find a way to win, and it's just, I mean, you could say all of it's BS and all that. They just get lucky. It's BS. I kind of agree with a lot of you, but it just seems like the Chiefs are going to win again, and they're going for the three-peat. And I hate to say it. I hope I'm wrong on this pick. I 110% want to be wrong on this. I hope the Bills can beat them. But it just seems like the Chiefs are just going to find a way to win in this one here. I'm picking the Chiefs to get back to the Super Bowl again. Chiefs at -1.5 to beat the Bills. I hate to say it. I want the Bills to win, but it just seems like the Chiefs find a way to win, and the Bills are going to be with face palming heads and just pounding tables. Bills Mafia, I feel for you guys. I want you guys to win so badly. And I don't want to be saying this on camera because I don't want to seem like I'm biased or anything. But I have to be realistic here. I want the Bills to win, but the Chiefs just find a way to win. And I'm going to pick the Chiefs at -1.5 to beat Buffalo. And we're going to have a Super Bowl rematch. My projected Super Bowl matchup, and is going to be a rematch of the Super Bowl from 2 years ago. The Eagles and the Chiefs will play it one more time for the Super Bowl. And let's see if it ends up being a different result. But right now, let's enjoy the conference championship games. Hopefully they'll be good. And I will talk to you guys in 2 weeks when I make my pick for the Super Bowl. So everybody enjoy this conference championship game weekend, and I'll talk to you guys in 2 weeks.